If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. No!
Well, it's finally over. The Acolyte has finally come to an end, all of those plot holes filled, the questions answered, everything coming together to create a cohesive show. So safe to say, none of that happened. The Acolyte is a show that I really wanted to like, a show going back to an era where the Jedi reigned supreme, getting away from the Skywalkers and actually doing something new for once. But what a waste of potential this show turned out to be. I never thought this show could end up being this bad. The Acolyte is, I'd honestly argue, the worst Star Wars we have gotten under Disney. Worse than the Rise of Skywalker, worse than the Book of Boba Fett. I have never seen Star Wars so incompetently written. This show's writing makes the Rise of Skywalker look good.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And I'm not saying that for a bit for the video either. This writing is bizarrely bad. I banged on about it in my last video, and since then it's somehow managed to get worse. They dropped episode 7, which was probably the worst episode of the show, and the finale where they tried to salvage this dogshit script with a Darth Plagueis cameo. Well, in this video, we're going to dive deep into the Acolyte now that the entire series is out. Where did this show go wrong? How does it compare to other terrible Star Wars media? Why is it the worst Star Wars I've seen in years? Well, we're going to get to the bottom of all of it. So we're obviously going to start with this show's biggest problem, and that is of course the writing. I went really heavy on the writing of this show a couple weeks ago, and with the final 2 episodes complete, the series done, I am blown away by how bad the writing got in this show. I seriously thought they'd maybe be able to salvage certain plot holes this show had, or just genuine lapses in logic in the writing with the answers in these final episodes. Some things were answered, many things were A, not answered at all, or B, confirmed to be a result of garbage writing. The finale of this show alone is a perfect example of turn your brain off and don't think about it. If you watch The Acolyte and don't think about anything, then yeah, it's possible you can have a good time with it. But the second you actually stop and think about what you're watching, you realize how bad the writing is. Again, this show is a prime example of turn your brain off and don't think about it. And it shouldn't be that way. I even had people on my last video of The Acolyte say that I'm ruining this show for myself because I'm thinking about it too much. Like literally saying, don't use your brain, just sit there and consume. Otherwise, it's your fault. Sorry, but no, that is not how this works. I'm not going to give myself a lobotomy just so I can enjoy this Star Wars show. That's a pathetic excuse for the incompetence on display by these writers. So let's get into the specifics. One of the worst parts of this entire show were the twins, Osha and May. I've been very specific over why I think May is a terribly written character and makes no sense. Her actions are just completely unjustifiable half the time. She changes her entire world philosophy on a moment's notice, like literally throws her life mission away when she betrays Kamir in episode 4, which was abrupt and dumb as hell in of itself, but then backflips on that betrayal 10 minutes later by fighting the Jedi that she'd said she'd surrendered to. And then she becomes bad again going undercover as her sister, but then becomes good again because the script says so, because Osha needs to be the bad one now. Like, does this sound like a mess? Yeah, that's because it is. It's honestly difficult to summarize this character's intentions because they don't make any sense. They chop and change without logic or reason. Her motives change because the script says so, not because it makes sense for the character. Which is something that I just can't wrap my head around for a show that has so much money being thrown at it. How almost every single character can be so poorly written is honestly impressive. I don't know what kind of con work Leslye Headland did to get $180 million for this show with this script, but damn. In the early episodes, I was really enjoying the character of Sol, but by the end, I was just left scratching my head. This dude is crazy obsessed with Osha, and it's never really explained beyond, I feel a connection. Like, okay. And then they use Sol in the finale as a scapegoat as to why all of the dead Jedi and the appearance of the Sith weren't known to all, which opens up severe plot holes in of itself, but again, don't think about it, just consume content. So Osha kills Sol after he confesses to her that he killed her mother, but instead of seeking any form of answer as to why, pretty important stuff you'd think, Osha just chokes out the dude who was a father figure to her, instead of, asking one simple question that would have provided necessary context. She knows Sol. She was trained by him, a father figure. Wouldn't she at least think for a second that if he killed her mother, there had to at least be a reason? But again, if it hasn't become clear by this point, this show is not written well, so that doesn't happen. She just chokes him and Sol is dead, just so we can pin everything on him so the Ki-Adi-Mundi line in The Phantom Menace can somehow make a little bit of sense. But oh wait, it doesn't, because Venestra is seemingly about to tell Yoda all about it in the final shot of the show. It's just a complete disaster at this point. The finale of The Acolyte actually showed glimpses of being good, finally, but it was quickly undone by stupid writing. The space chase between Sol and May was actually pretty good, and it looked high budget, like finally. It only took the final episode to actually feel like this show had some money put into it. Did it justify the budget? No, but it's a start. It's just a shame the start was in the finale. So I was actually enjoying this scene, but then Basil, the little beaver thing, cuts the chase off so Sol can't pursue May. Why he did this? I have no idea. I have watched it back several times and it still doesn't make sense. There is literally no answer. There's barely even a slightly logical interpretation. This little rat thing pulls the wires out to stop the chase because reasons. The script says so. You could at least try and bullshit a reason, but no, that's just where we're at with this show at this point. It's high school level writing incompetence. One of the final shots of The Acolyte also made me just laugh. So Kamir pretty much kills everyone that Osha knows and is friends with, such as Jackie, Yord, etc. And within like legitimately one day, she's standing on a beach with him, basically holding hands after killing her father figure. Are we serious? Do we just not want to give these characters time to develop? Is it that hard to do? Is it not deemed necessary by these writers? This is like Rey going from nobody to whooping everyone's ass in less than a week. The common denominator here is shit writing. Character arcs need time to develop, especially when they are as drastic as what this show is trying to pull off. That's one of the perks of a TV show. You actually get the time to develop the characters, to do it naturally. So actually do it. You can't just have characters switch their entire worldview on a dime and expect audiences to accept it. Audiences with standards, mind you, there's still people out there that will. Give your stories the time they need to actually have believable characters, because this show is just unbelievable when it comes to character motivations. May decides to give up her memory so Osha can go train with the Sith, when May literally left Osha for dead the day before. Like, are they even trying to develop these characters logically? It's honestly the worst writing I've seen from any Star Wars media. It is pathetic, to be perfectly honest. Now, the entire show's plot rests on the events that happen on Brendok in the flashback, with Sol killing Osha and May's mother. And it's portrayed as this super villainous act where Sol is the bad guy and he did a terrible thing. You mean he killed the powerful witch that morphed into this scary-ass ghost cloud that was also clearly affecting a child, possibly straight up killing said child? Yeah, that's what this show rests on. This action is what this entire show rests on. And this is the best you could do to ensure these characters harbor all this guilt and desire for vengeance for over a decade. Torben taking a vow of silence, then ending his own life, was built up because of this horrible thing that must have happened in this flashback. But there is nothing here that warrants Torben swearing a vow of silence and taking his own life. Like, he swears silence and takes his own life because he got a little homesick and a Jedi he was with killed the evil witch lady that was disintegrating a child. Like, what? Not to mention, Anastaea's line after Sol stabs her is the biggest gaslighting moment I've ever seen. She says after Sol stabs her that she was gonna let him take Osha. Could you not have said this before you turned into the scary-ass ghost monster and seemingly tried to fade a child out of existence? Like, seriously, watch this scene again. Anastaea does her witch cloud monster thing, Sol looks at May, and it's very clear that something is wrong, so he reacts accordingly. And then it's like, nah, lol, I was going to let you have Osha. So what happens here is the catalyst for the conflict in this show. Why May goes down the dark side to avenge her mother. Not that we actually find out how that happened, because the show never thought to flesh out how May and Camille met in the first place, but anyway. Like, this is the most important moment of the show, and it's flawed to hell. It raises more questions than it answers. The entire show's premise rests on this moment, and it's completely illogical. Kel Naka went into hiding, which was about the only thing that actually made sense out of this entire flashback, because it's to do with Wookiee culture and because he used his claws on Torben. So that actually had a viable reason as to why Kel Naka exiled himself. Okay. But basically every other character as a result of this flashback makes no sense. It's a complete and utter mess. So in my first video on the Acolyte after the first 2 episodes, I flagged the fact that how the structure of the story was being told was extremely strange and a future big problem for this show. Having seen the entire show, that point is completely validated. This show's story structure is all over the place. You begin as a murder mystery, but basically all the characters are killed off around halfway through the show, despite the fact we don't really know who they are at all. And in the 3rd episode, you introduce a perspective flashback that conveniently leaves key pieces of information out for no logical reason other than hiding the rest of the edit so you can reveal it later. And then in the penultimate episode, you essentially retell the 3rd episode again, but with the parts you left out, and provide answers that don't justify the actions we've seen from the characters prior. And then you spend the last episode attempting to wrap up the twin plot and actually give Osha something to do, finally, despite her literally being a passenger in a story in which it tries to revolve around her and her sister. Like, does this sound all over the place? Yes, because it is all over the place. Does this show want to be a murder mystery? Does it want to be a Sith story? Does it want to be a Jedi story? Does it want to be about the twins? Does it want to be a cheap cameo attempt? Well, it seems it wants to be all of the above, but a master of none. And it changed from episode to episode, making the show feel like a disconnected blend of whatever the writers were feeling on that specific day. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with this show. It tries to do a lot, but excels at nothing as a result. Like, there were some good ideas here, you know, a whodunit mystery in Star Wars? Hell yeah. But there was no focus. It tried to do so many things and fell on its face in trying to juggle everything it was going for. This show would have been 10 times better if it just did away with Osha and May completely, focused on the stranger and the Jedi, and went the murder mystery route, with perhaps more of a glimpse into the Sith. Of course, you'd have to move things around to keep canon intact, but it's clear that's of no concern to Leslye Headland anyway. What I'm trying to get at is, the twins offer nothing but problems in this show. It doesn't help that the actress playing these twins was really, really bad. There's a lot of bad acting in this show in general, to be honest. But at least it might have had a little bit of focus as a result of dropping the twins out of the story, because they just convolute it and are far from the most interesting part. Like, Leslye, if you want to make a show about the Sith and you want to use Plagueis, make a show about the Sith, not whatever this mess of everything was. Now, whilst putting this video together, I had a look at the writing credits, and this show had 10 writers across its 8 episodes, and it all just started to make sense. This show was one person's vision, split across 10 writers, varying from episode to episode. It's no wonder why this show feels all over the place, why character motives don't line up, why plot holes are all over the place. This thing was doomed to fail before they even started shooting. I don't know who over at Lucasfilm read the script and said, for one, yeah, this deserves to be made, but more importantly, this deserves $180 million. There is a rotten core over there at Lucasfilm, and they need a clean out, because seriously, how much worse can Star Wars get before something actually changes? So it's not exactly breaking news that since the sequels were botched, Star Wars hasn't really been flying with passing colors on Disney Plus with all of these shows. Sure, the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian were great, and Andor was that good that it felt like it was an imposter being on Disney Plus's streaming service instead of HBO's. But apart from that, it's been rough. More often than not, Star Wars has become a cameo simulator, something that helps patch over the gaping cracks that is modern Star Wars writing. This show isn't good? That's right, just put Anakin Skywalker in there. The writing's bad? That's fine. Just put Cad Bane in there. We botched our sequel trilogy? No problem. Palpatine will fix it. And we've seen this once again in The Acolyte, and to be honest, I think it's probably the most pathetic attempt I've seen yet. I saw this post on Twitter yesterday, and it blew my mind. Go follow me on Twitter, by the way. This guy said, Star Wars is thriving, with 2 photos of the Plagueis and Yoda cameos. I genuinely thought I was going insane, because this is indicative of why modern Star Wars is in such a bad place. Like, there's a lot to break down here. 1, I wouldn't call these numbers thriving. For starters, this show did not perform well at all. And 2, so because you got 3 seconds of Plagueis and 3 seconds of the back of Yoda's head, forget the bad writing and the nonsensical storytelling and the laughably bad characters, it's thriving because we got some of those sweet member berries. This person fails to realize that what he thinks is causing Star Wars to thrive is the very reason why it is not thriving. Because it's people like this that are the reason why Disney think they can keep serving up this slop and get away with it, because they don't have standards. Because one cameo can erase all the bad writing that made the show suck in the first place. Look, nobody wanted to see Plagueis in live action more than me. But when I saw him here, I literally rolled my eyes. I wish I was recording it. And no word of a lie, I actually walked out of the room when I saw Yoda at the end of the finale. He was just confusingly absent this entire time, and then he's conveniently present for the very last scene of the show to bait a season 2. Like, yeah, okay. Maybe if the writing was good in the first place, you might not feel the need to do this to get people interested in season 2. But I guess when you can just dish up absolute garbage, throw a cheap cameo in there and have people seal clapping, that just makes everything okay. Like, this show dished up some of the worst writing I've seen in a show in years. Not just Star Wars, a show in general, a movie in general. And then it had the nerve to bait a second season with cameos. To dangle the keys in front of people like this in a piss poor effort to make people think the show was better than it is, so they should come for season 2. I've been saying this very phrase for years, and annoyingly, it becomes more and more relevant as time goes by. Star Wars is obsessed with bringing back shards of the past to make the present worthwhile. And that sums up episode 8 of The Acolyte perfectly. Because realistically, who the hell is coming back for a season 2 if Plagueis and Yoda weren't in this show? Not many people. But who's coming back because of Plagueis and Yoda? I'm willing to bet a lot more. Because this shit is effective. This is why they do it. They know it's easy to fall into the trap of enjoying these cameos. Clearly. Because let's be brutally honest, who is coming back for season 2 because of May and Osha? Absolutely no one is coming back for those 2 characters. And look, maybe I've just grown more cynical over time, but I'm just not falling for this shit anymore. You want a cameo to get the internet talking? That's fine. Make a good show first. Actually earn it. Don't dish up complete dribble in the writer's room and then use cameos to bail out your bad writing. It's just so desperate. But to stray off topic a little bit here, and there's something that I just have to point out with this show. We all know the $180 million budget this show has, at least apparently, money laundering aside. Notice how every single scene in the Jedi Temple is claustrophobic. No big sweeping wides, nothing. Every single shot is so contained and so claustrophobic. Compare that to the prequels and you'll notice a massive difference. They've shot these Jedi Temple scenes like they have no budget at all, and I just ask why? Where did this money go? Say what you want about the prequels, but at least you got a sense of the scale of the world, and I think the Jedi Temple is a perfect comparison of why this is a problem in The Acolyte. You don't feel the money being pumped into this show, no sense of scale, just bland, contained environments. This shouldn't be a problem with a show with this kind of budget. But the fact that I can sit here watching The Acolyte and say that I'd rather watch Book of Boba Fett or The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker is honestly impressive. Again, man, I wasn't one of those people that had this show written off before it came out, and that's documented in the videos on my channel. I was always willing to give the benefit of the doubt despite the red flags, and I did. I tried. But the amount of secondhand embarrassment I got from watching this show was painful. Like, there were moments where I was like, okay, you've actually got a cool idea here. Challenging the Jedi as being flawed. But you stop and realize, and it's like, wait, We've already done this. Did you watch the prequels? Like, who is this show for? What characters are we rooting for? It's not like it delivers on the profound nature of confusing the viewer on who the good guys are and who the bad guys are and where does it begin and end, because the writing isn't smart enough to pull that kind of thing off. So what was the point of this show? Like, really, what was the point? I seriously didn't think Disney had it in them to release a show worse than the Book of Boba Fett, but here we are. A whole new low for Star Wars. It's a sad time we live in as Star Wars fans. So, The Acolyte. Thank God it's over. Now it's time for Deadpool and Wolverine in House of the Dragon, something I think I'll actually enjoy. I wanted to like this show, but this show is everything wrong with Star Wars and a whole new low for Star Wars under Disney. If they do a season 2, a lot has to change. The writing is priority number 1. I like characters like Camille, but Jesus man, everyone else is just insufferable. This show overall is a massive disappointment, but despite what logic tells us, I've got a real strong feeling that this isn't the last we're going to be seeing of The Acolyte.